Gardens are a fascinating intersection between humanity and nature. My mom is an avid gardener and is constantly soliciting my help in our garden. The first garden we had took up the majority of our backyard, with beds of geraniums, tulips, and all sorts of other flowers. It also had tomatoes, lettuces, beans, herbs, and other veggies. It was more often than not nature overgrown, barely constrained by the human limits we try to impose. In exploring this natural mayhem, we could easily observe a system teeming with a diversity of life from insects to earthworms. I believe my first exposure to the natural world was through my own backyard garden. I credit it with a large part of my love for nature and interest in environmentalism. A garden is defined by a planned space, usually outdoors, set aside for display, cultivation, and enjoyment of plants and other forms of nature. It is basically humans and nature interacting. Human involvement is almost indistinguishable from nature's plan. We create gardens for food, beauty, as a hobby, and for deeper connection with nature. It can mean many different things for different people. I believe that gardens have a high cultural, political, agricultural, and emotional value, in large part because of the connection they facilitate between humans and nature. In attempting to understand the impacts of gardening, I interviewed several people within the Dickinson and Greater Dickinson community on their work with gardening.
Gardening and farming is a man-made act or a person-made act. It's a total manipulation of nature, and no matter how we try to mimic nature as much as possible through systems of gardening or systems of farming that create polycultures and strive against monocultural systems, in and of itself it's an unnatural process. But I don't think that's a bad thing. And so I think it's a way, gardening provides a way, or a way for humans to connect with nature.
Like in all aspects, it kind of integrates you into the cycles of nature and like seasons and all that, more so than most people nowadays would have, where, you know, you're kind of just in conditioned air all the time, not worrying about it too much. Like if it rains, you're inside, it doesn't matter. But like if you're invested in these plants outside, then you have to think about it and be a part of it. So I definitely think it helps your connection, like facilitate a connection to nature.
I have a yard full of birds and squirrels and, you know, bunnies, and I live right down the street in Carlisle. And so I did want to make sure, and bees, I wanted to make sure that I had a garden that would attract wildlife and that would also help wildlife be preserved in this kind of semi-urban space.
Any way that you can invest more in nature, bringing nature to people that are living in a densely populated urban space. I love living in an urban space. I love being able to walk to restaurants, but being able to also make it that they can get away from the bustle and put their hands in dirt and play and nurture something and see the fruits of their labor, literally.
I was excited to have my garden greet me, and it was always so happy to see me, and I was happy to see it.
We are stewards of the earth. Humans are. We're the only ones that can think, you know, to garden, so we have to be stewards, and it doesn't make any difference your persuasion, who you are, your political background, anything like that. You know, we all have to be stewards. Yeah.
Do you think gardening is a form of stewardship?
Absolutely, absolutely it is. And it should be, and it should be. And that's why my goal as a master gardener, and what we do as master gardeners, are educate, to teach people how to do it right, what you're looking for in the garden, that type of thing.
It gave me an opportunity to work and sweat and feel a sense of accomplishment and bury my stress in the ground. And so that, and create beauty all at the same time. And so that is my connection to the earth.
Oh boy, there's a lot of benefits of gardening. Let's see, it keeps you young, keeps you in shape. For the most part, you're outside, keeps you healthy. And for some reason, well, there's been many, many tests done that psychologically You know, if you are outside, if you are in the dirt, if you're close to nature, it plays a whole different thing on your psyche and your endorphins, and all the good feelings that you have tend to come out with that. So it's more of a stress reducer, stress relaxer for a lot of people.
It's bringing people together through food and sort of identifying how important food is and how important sort of utilizing the food is because of the efforts that go into it.
I guess in the beginning it was community involvement. A lot of us didn't have a lot of experience in gardening, and it's always more fun to do it with a group of people.
Oh, it's definitely impacts on community, because like when Dee and I spend time out here and we're just pulling weeds, you know, people interact with you. They come by, they want to know what you're doing, what's this about, how they can get involved. You know,
It's made sort of a web of people and groups that watch out for a certain space, and I think that it makes it more stable in the long run.
There's also a huge sharing community that I was sort of a part of as far as produce goes. So if there was any extra produce from any of our gardens, there would be some sharing.
this area is just fringe on a real poverty-stricken area, and has been known in the past to have a lot of crime activity. So, you know, putting something positive in here and attracting attention to it, you know, again, you know, it takes that negative and turns it into a positive.
In terms of urban environments and vacant lots, I mean, there's so much potential there for, again, self-sufficiency, but not only self-sufficiency, but like community sufficiency, I think, you know, so thinking about it in more urban and suburban environments, the power of building community through gardens, I think, is also could have profound effects as well.
I also look at it as first tier and second tier of commercial or consumerism. Because I mean, I can't not buy anything, but I grow lots of food, and being able to grow your own food, and even if it doesn't provide you all the food that you need, you are realizing that you don't have to rely on this mechanism that is continually going for everything that you need in the world.
So yeah, I think it's political. I see it as political. I think that people need to be more independent. You know, more self-sufficient. And I mean, you can't obviously feed yourself out of one bed, but it's a beginning. It's a beginning. Supplements. It's a good supplement.
I do see growing one's own food, fiber, herbs, as a statement of self-sufficiency and a statement toward food sovereignty, which I think in and of itself is a political statement. And I think the more we as gardeners and farmers can seek ways of improving our sovereignty, the stronger we're going to be in the future.
Gardens allow us a connection with the wild. We feel the soil, watch plants mature, notice other creatures, and then we harvest what we have grown. We use the products of the garden to nourish our souls and bodies. The beautiful flowers decorate our homes with color and form. The vegetables give us nutrients and satiate our appetite. It can provide disappointment with a bad yield and requires hard work through our toil in preparing the soil and maintenance of weeds. Within a garden, we can not only observe but also participate in the circle of life. In doing so, we can create a connection and harmony with nature.